Hello and welcome to another Trix and Treaty devlog. Trix and Treaty, the game I'm developing, has you playing as a young kid with their sketchbook ghost trying to get their candy back from a monster in 31 days, which I'm thinking will be about 2 hours. In theory, if you have enough time, you can explore every nook and cranny, but part of the game is learning keeping track of time can be difficult. For this devlog, I'm mostly going to be covering stuff that I posted during Devtober, which is kind of a pseudo game jam where you basically have to post about a game for 31 days, i.e. the month of October, and you can upload your game if it's a shorter one or just a demo or whatever. But the whole point of it is basically to try to reflect on what you can do in a month in regards of keeping a consistent schedule with developing your game. I would know because I have started my game in 2018. Well, I've not been posting about it daily. I have been trying to work on it pretty consistently. In fact, actually, if I want to be more specific, Trix and Treaty actually started for the 2018 Devtober. If you do want to check out everything individually, I did have all my posts on @NeonDevBreeze on Twitter if you want to go check it out there, but I will be covering most of the stuff, though that gives you more of a calendar, whereas this is more of organized based on what every type of thing I worked on is. Starting off, here's some kind of platforming / world building, I guess, stuff. I have worked on a background, which previously I did have the rotating sky background, but now I actually have something in front of that, which I feel like is pretty neat because it makes it feel a little bit more like an environment. I've also added in water. This will mostly be in World 1, maybe in some of the future worlds too, but it will kind of push you lightly in a direction, which I feel like will serve as a maybe minor penalty for platforming if you mess up a jump. On the alternative, a more major penalty for platforming are spikes. These will launch you up if you collide with them, but you can also choose to, well, not necessarily choose to, hopefully you decide to knock enemies into the spikes as they will also damage them. Chests are another thing that I've also added in. These will randomly give you items if you, and I think the Devtober post I made if you actually hit them with an attack, but I actually changed it so that you actually have to walk into them, so you can't just hit it from a distance. I've also started some stuff for World 2 in terms of sketching out some level design as well as coming up with a tile set for World 2. This one will actually be inside of a mansion, whereas the first one's kind of more inside of an autumny forest. For some combat changes, there's quite a lot. For one, this isn't really a new thing, but I have shown off the bomb item, or I guess rather I didn't think I showed off the bomb item before the Devtober post, so here it is. You basically can lob it. It's a little bit heavier than the ink, which is another arcing based projectile, but it is a lot stronger and covers a wider distance. Another item I have added is a parry totem. How this guy works is kind of complicated, but basically if you time right as you get hit, you will slam the totem down and knock the enemy away. The description doesn't quite sound like a parry, and that's because at the moment it's kind of the opposite of one, but I am open to feedback on it, and I have gotten a suggestion to do it the other way around, which I am thinking I might. I guess it kind of depends on what happens with the actual level design for the game. I also reanimated and kind of redesigned the slime enemy. I feel like I will keep the original slime enemy in, but they will not look like that. They will actually be a different enemy, and the slime enemy, or I guess this new redesigned one, will actually fit in a different spot. I have also added some new treaty emotes, if you will. These are little things that treaty will do depending on Trix's condition, so if they're hurt, they'll be kind of worried, but they can also be relieved too. Another change that I also have, and this might be a setting that you can turn on and off, but I'm actually going to include some aiming lines, I guess. You can actually see where the projectiles will actually travel before you shoot them out. Similarly, the camera will also lean to the left or right depending on where the mouse is, i.e. where you're aiming. Easily though, the biggest change to the combat is the enemy health juggling thing is what I've wrote down in my notes, but basically what that means is previously if an enemy had 0 health, it would just instantly be defeated on the spot. Now if an enemy is at 0 health, you actually can still continuously hit them and keep them up in the air before they actually will collide with the ground, which then they will actually be KO'd. What this means is that the longer you're able to juggle them, the more money you can actually earn. So if you're skilled enough to have a good enough combo, then you can actually earn more money, which I feel like is a pretty good change because I have referred to a combo system a lot, but there's not really a crazy incentive to doing so, so I feel like this is a nice change. For some miscellaneous stuff, there were some slight animation changes or just some animations that I have done for stuff like the shop menu. I have also worked on the pause menu for the game, which I am actually very proud of because I didn't think it would look nearly as good as it is, but there's that. None of the buttons really work at the moment, so it's kind of more of a mock-up, but I still think it looks pretty nice. And I have also worked on a good chunk of stuff for the OST, which you can hear in the background of the video. Overall for this year's experience, I feel like I personally did pretty good. I do know there were some days where I did kind of have some struggles in terms of actually getting work done because I was busy and they would have a lot less work done than other days, but I feel like overall there actually was a pretty good amount of progress made. One thing that is nice is that personally I have been pretty motivated to work on my game, so there were some days where like I could just pick it up and then really easily in like an hour or two, 30 minutes sometimes, I could just crank out something pretty cool. It's kind of weird though, because there were some things that I was kind of debating on what I wanted to do and some things that were kind of thought up on the spot. Like I personally didn't think about the aiming line thing until maybe the beginning of September or something like that. I don't quite know, but I feel like actually having motivation to post daily, it made me think of more stuff I could include in the game that could be A, decently easy to develop, but also B, pretty good for the game as a whole. So I guess the next question is what's next? I have thought of some slight combat changes that I am going to work on really quickly. For one, the first projectile that you launch will probably be faster, which what I mean by that is not necessarily the first projectile of every projectile. I mean, when you first start holding down the left click button, the first one that you fire out of your rapid fire stream of projectiles will be a lot quicker in regards of how long you have to wait, or I guess like it'll have less startup frames or whatever you want to call it. Not necessarily that it will actually travel faster, but I might make that a change. I think that what this will do is it'll make it feel a little bit more snappy instead of having to wait a bit for the first projectile to be launched. Similarly, I also do want to add some floatiness to when you are firing projectiles, so that if you are trying to hit someone who is higher, if you jump up, you'll have an easier time doing so, which alongside that means that you'll probably have an extended coyote time if you are firing projectiles. If you don't know what coyote time means, basically in games, normally players will time their jumps by the time they reach the edge of the platform, but games are not usually programmed that way, so to actually make it feel a lot more responsive so you don't fall off, you basically will include something called coyote time, which makes it so you can stand off of the edge of a platform for a little while before you actually fall off. Kind of like in like old like cartoons, which is why it's called coyote time. Basically it's kind of where the phrase like I pressed it to jump or something comes from, or like, oh, I thought I press jump, because you did, but it's just that the game isn't programmed that way, so that's kind of how coyote time works. Similarly too, I'm thinking about including some more knockback changes, because I think at the moment there's probably some infinite combo you can perform, so I'll probably just have to nerf that out, or at least make it harder to perform, because actually I'm kind of down to have an infinite, I don't really mind. I also did think about another thing too. The release for my game might still be a little bit, because I personally don't really know too much about when I want to do it. However, I am thinking about actually releasing a maybe beta or alpha or whatever you want to call it, an early build, if you will, of the game that people can mess around with and then give feedback on. I'm not sure when I want to do this, because I do kind of want to polish stuff up and make it decent, so then it could be something I could also propose to people instead of just like what I currently have, which is kind of, well, it's not bad, but it's just that it's not like full, which I feel like if I had something that seemed a little bit more promising, I feel like that could be a lot better. I think it'll probably just be about like half of the first world or something. I'm not really too sure, but I feel like including some little beta or whatever could be nice. Other than that, I do want to return to the schedule that I did right before October and September, which was pretty much uploading once every other week or so, maybe some like mini posts in between or something like that, mostly because I am pretty surprised that my game actually did get pretty good reception over the course of October. I didn't think that there were a lot of people who were actually down to check it out, so thank you for that. And otherwise, I hope you go check out other games on tags such as Screenshot Saturday or just other people's Devtober projects, because if you look on itch.io where the game jam was hosted, there probably is a good chunk of stuff there, so go check out some of those. Other than that, I hope you have a good day.